In Islam, the rights of women are deeply embedded in the Quran and Hadith, offering them a range of protections, dignities, and responsibilities. The Islamic perspective on women's rights is not merely legal but also moral and spiritual, emphasizing justice, equality, and respect. The Quran is the primary source of Islamic teachings, and it is clear in outlining the rights and roles of women. One of the first principles highlighted in the Quran is the inherent dignity and equality of men and women in the eyes of Allah. In Surah An-Nisa 4:1, it is stated that both men and women were created from a single soul, emphasizing their shared humanity and equality in the sight of God. This verse, along with others, indicates that men and women have been given complementary roles but are equal in terms of their intrinsic value. In Surah Al-Ahzab 33:35, the Quran further emphasizes the equal spiritual standing of men and women, stating that both are equally accountable to Allah for their actions, with rewards for those who are pious and perform good deeds. Women are granted rights to education, property, and financial independence in Islam. The Quran encourages the pursuit of knowledge for both men and women. In Surah Al-Alaq 96:1-5, the very first revelation to the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, stresses the importance of learning and knowledge, with no gender discrimination. Education is seen as a path toward empowerment and enlightenment. Moreover, in matters of property, women have the right to inherit and own property, as mentioned in Surah An-Nisa 4:7. They are entitled to a share of inheritance, which is determined by Islamic law, ensuring that they are financially supported, whether they are daughters, wives, or mothers. The right to own property allows women financial autonomy, and this principle was revolutionary for the time. Marriage in Islam is based on mutual consent, and women have the right to choose their spouses. The Quran clearly establishes that marriage should be founded on love and mercy, as seen in Surah Ar-Rum 30:21, where it is mentioned that marriage is meant to bring peace, comfort, and mutual affection. The practice of forced marriages is forbidden, and a woman's consent is a prerequisite for a valid marriage contract. Women also have the right to ask for a divorce, khula, if the marriage becomes untenable, which allows them to seek legal separation. In Surah Al-Baqarah 2:229, the Quran provides a framework for divorce, ensuring that both parties are treated with fairness and justice. Islamic law also provides women with specific rights regarding their treatment in marriage. They are entitled to fair and respectful treatment by their husbands, as instructed in the Quran and reinforced by the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH. In the famous hadith found in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet, PBUH, says, "The best of you are those who are the best to their wives." This emphasizes the importance of kindness and respect in the marital relationship. The Quran also emphasizes the importance of protecting the wife's rights, particularly her right to a suitable and fair livelihood. In Surah At-Talaq 65:6, it is stated that the husband should provide for his wife during the period of divorce, ensuring that she is not left destitute. A woman's right to her body and health is also affirmed in Islam. The Quran emphasizes the importance of protecting one's health and well-being, and the Hadith support this by advocating for women's health rights. The right to privacy is also protected, particularly in terms of modesty, as exemplified in the Quranic verses regarding hijab. The Quran in Surah An-Nur 2431 and Surah Al-Ahzab 33:59 encourages women to dress modestly, but it also underlines that women should not be judged based on their appearance alone. The concept of modesty in Islam is meant to protect a woman's dignity and ensure her safety and privacy. In terms of motherhood, the Quran and Hadith place great emphasis on the role of women as mothers. Islam elevates the status of mothers, with the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, stating, "Paradise lies at the feet of mothers." This highlights the significant position of mothers in Islamic teachings. Women are given the right to be honored and respected for their role in raising children. The Quran in Surah Luqman 31:14 and Surah Al-Ahqaf 46:15 emphasizes the hardships of motherhood, especially in the context of bearing and nurturing children, and urges kindness and respect towards mothers. Women are also encouraged to participate in society and contribute to the community. The Quran and Hadith show that women have historically played vital roles in various aspects of life, from leadership to charity work. The Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, affirmed the importance of women in society through his interactions with prominent women of his time, such as his wife Khadija, who was a successful businesswoman, and Aisha, who became a great scholar and teacher. The Hadiths encourage women to engage in social work, to seek knowledge, and to be active participants in building a just and equitable society. However, the implementation of women's rights in Islam is not uniform across all cultures and societies. Different interpretations of Islamic law can influence how women's rights are observed. Some practices in certain regions have misused or misinterpreted Islamic principles, leading to restrictions on women's rights, such as limiting their freedom of movement or imposing cultural practices not supported by the Quran and Hadith. It is essential to distinguish between cultural practices and authentic Islamic teachings, as the latter provides a comprehensive framework for the protection and upliftment of women. In conclusion, the Quran and Hadith provide a clear and robust framework for the protection, respect, and empowerment of women. Women are granted equal spiritual status, the right to education, the right to own property, and the right to choose their spouses. They are protected in marriage, honored as mothers, and allowed to participate fully in societal affairs. Islam's treatment of women is one of justice, respect, and dignity, and its teachings promote a society where men and women are seen as partners in both the family and the broader community. Continuing the discussion, it is crucial to highlight how Islamic teachings address the issue of women's rights in terms of social justice and societal participation. Islam encourages both men and women to engage in the betterment of society, emphasizing that the collective progress of a community depends on the contribution of all its members. Women are encouraged to be active participants in their communities, whether through charity, education, or social welfare. The Hadiths record numerous instances where the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, worked alongside women in various endeavors, demonstrating the importance of their role in shaping the social, economic, and spiritual landscape of society. In matters of work and employment, Islam acknowledges the right of women to pursue a career, to earn a livelihood, and to engage in professions that contribute to society. While the Quran and Hadith stress the importance of women's roles in the home, particularly as mothers, there is no prohibition on women working outside the home as long as it does not conflict with their religious and familial responsibilities. Women in early Islamic history were active in a wide range of professions, from traders and scholars to warriors and administrators. Islamic feminist movements are also gaining momentum globally, as Muslim women increasingly engage in theological and legal discourse to advocate for gender justice within the framework of Islam. These movements emphasize the importance of returning to the foundational sources of Islam, the Quran and Hadith, to highlight the principles of gender equality and justice that are often overshadowed by misinterpretations or cultural traditions. Many scholars in the field of Islamic feminism argue that Islam, when interpreted correctly, offers a powerful vision for gender equality, one that allows for the full participation of women in religious, social, and political life. In this context, the reinterpretation of Islamic texts becomes a critical tool for reform. Scholars and activists are advocating for a more contextual understanding of the Quran and Hadith, one that considers the historical and social context of the revelations and the cultural norms of the time. This approach allows for a deeper understanding of the original intent behind many verses that have been misused to justify gender inequality. For instance, discussions around the concept of dowry, and qawaman, the role of men as protectors and maintainers, are areas where scholars argue that a more nuanced understanding can lead to greater equity between men and women. Another area of focus in contemporary Islamic thought is the issue of modesty, often associated with the practice of wearing the hijab. While some have interpreted the hijab as a symbol of women's oppression, many Muslim women view it as an expression of their autonomy, a personal choice that reflects their desire to maintain their dignity and privacy. In Islam, modesty is not only about outward appearance but also about the conduct of individuals in all aspects of their lives. The choice to wear the hijab is viewed by many as an act of empowerment, allowing women to define their identity on their own terms, rather than conforming to societal expectations based on appearance. The role of women in leadership is also evolving in many Muslim communities. While leadership positions in many Muslim-majority countries have traditionally been held by men, there's growing recognition of the capabilities of women to serve in leadership roles. Islamic history provides numerous examples of female leaders, including Queen Bilqis of Sheba, who is mentioned in the Quran as a wise and just ruler, and the Prophet's wife Aisha, who was not only a respected scholar but also a political leader who played a critical role in early Islamic history. In modern times, female leaders such as Indira Gandhi, Benazir Bhutto, and more recently, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, continue to show that Muslim women are fully capable of holding leadership positions at the highest levels of government and society. In family law, reforms are being made in various parts of the Muslim world to ensure that women's rights are fully upheld. There have been significant legal reforms in areas such as marriage, divorce, inheritance, and child custody. For example, many countries have introduced laws to protect women from domestic violence, and some have worked to amend inheritance laws to ensure that women's shares are respected in practice. These reforms often align with the core principles of Islam, which mandate fairness and justice in all dealings. The implementation of these reforms, however, can vary, and there remains work to be done to ensure that women's legal rights are fully realized and that justice is consistently applied in both personal and public matters. Islamic law, or Sharia, has often been subject to misinterpretation and misapplication in various parts of the world. In some cases, cultural norms and local practices have led to gender discrimination, even though these practices are not rooted in the core teachings of Islam. It is important to distinguish between cultural practices and Islamic principles, as the latter unequivocally supports the dignity, rights, and equality of women. The promotion of an authentic understanding of Sharia, one that emphasizes the rights and responsibilities of women as equals to men, is crucial for ensuring that women are treated justly and that their rights are protected. One of the most profound rights afforded to women in Islam is their right to spiritual equality. The Quran makes it clear that men and women are equally responsible for their actions and will be judged equally in the hereafter. In Surah Al-Ahzab 33:35, the Quran speaks of the equal reward for both believing men and women who engage in righteous actions. This spiritual equality is central to Islam's understanding of human dignity. Women are given the right to engage in worship, seek knowledge, and contribute to the spiritual development of their communities. Their role in the family and society is recognized as essential to the well-being of the broader community. Finally, the right of Muslim women to express themselves, whether through art, writing, political activism, or entrepreneurship, is an integral part of Islam's call for social justice. Women are encouraged to use their talents and voices for the betterment of society, as long as they maintain the ethical guidelines provided in the Quran and Hadith. Women's voices in politics, literature, art, and social reform have been pivotal in advancing the rights and status of women within both Muslim and non-Muslim societies. In conclusion, the Quran and Hadith provide a timeless and comprehensive framework for the rights and dignity of women, ensuring their equality before Allah and their entitlement to justice, respect, and empowerment in all areas of life. While cultural practices and social norms have at times hindered the full realization of these rights, there's a growing movement among Muslim women and scholars to reclaim the true spirit of Islam and to advocate for gender equality within an Islamic framework. Through education, legal reforms, and the reinterpretation of Islamic texts, Muslim women continue to assert their rights and work toward creating a more just and equitable society that upholds the values of fairness, dignity, and respect as taught by Islam. The Quran and Hadiths allow women to engage in various forms of employment, entrepreneurship, and professional endeavors. For instance, the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, not only endorsed but also supported women working in professions like trade, education, healthcare, and social services. Khadija, the Prophet's wife, was one of the wealthiest and most successful businesswomen in early Islamic society. The emphasis in Islam is not on limiting women's work, but rather on ensuring that their work aligns with their values, respects their dignity, and allows them to fulfill their roles as both individuals and members of the larger society. In modern times, many women in Muslim-majority countries and beyond continue to challenge societal norms by pursuing careers, running businesses, and even entering traditionally male-dominated fields such as politics and science. The Islamic perspective on women's economic and professional participation is not restrictive. Instead, it seeks to create an environment where women can thrive in their chosen careers while maintaining their spiritual and ethical commitments. Additionally, the issue of women's rights to social justice, equality, and legal protections remains a dynamic aspect of the conversation about Islam and gender. Many Islamic feminists and advocates for women's rights argue that, when interpreted correctly, the Quran and Hadith provide the basis for gender equality, not just in theory but also in practice. They highlight that the teachings of Islam, when applied with full comprehension and respect for context, offer a system of justice that supports women's access to equal rights, opportunities, and protections. The protection of women's rights in cases of abuse and exploitation is another area where Islamic principles offer guidance. While the actions of some individuals and cultures may contradict the core teachings of Islam regarding the treatment of women, the Quran and Hadith have always placed a significant emphasis on preventing harm and injustice. Women who face any form of oppression, violence, or exploitation are entitled to seek justice and protection. The concept of justice in Islam, or ADL, mandates that all individuals, regardless of gender, should be treated with fairness, respect, and dignity. Domestic violence and abuse are unequivocally condemned in the Islamic faith. The Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, made it clear in his teachings and through his actions that women should not be subjected to harm and that their well-being should be a priority. Any interpretation of Islamic law that allows the mistreatment of women is a misapplication of Islamic principles. Moreover, Islamic legal scholars have historically provided legal mechanisms for women to protect their rights. For example, women have the right to seek divorce if their marriage becomes unbearable. The concept of khula, divorce initiated by the wife, is one of the significant rights afforded to women, ensuring that they are not bound to an unhappy or abusive relationship. Additionally, in cases of inheritance disputes or property rights, women have legal avenues through which they can claim their rights, as dictated by the Quranic verses related to inheritance, such as Surah An-Nisa 4:7-12. These legal frameworks ensure that women's rights are safeguarded in the eyes of Islamic law. The moral and ethical dimensions of women's rights in Islam also extend to the issue of women's participation in the arts, sports, and other aspects of cultural life. Islam allows for women to express themselves, as long as it is done in ways that do not compromise their dignity, modesty, or moral standing. Whether through the arts, literature, or public speaking, women in Islam are given the space to use their voices and talents to contribute to society. There is no inherent prohibition against women engaging in creative and cultural activities. Rather, these expressions are encouraged as long as they maintain the values of modesty and ethical conduct. Finally, one of the most significant challenges faced by many Muslim women around the world today is the gap between the ideal Islamic treatment of women as outlined in the Quran and Hadith and the reality of cultural practices that limit their freedoms. Many women in some regions may not fully experience the rights that Islam grants them due to local customs, political systems, or patriarchal structures that misunderstand or misapply Islamic teachings. This discrepancy has led to growing efforts by Muslim women, scholars, and activists to reclaim and reinterpret their religious rights, striving for gender justice within an Islamic framework. These efforts include the promotion of legal reforms, educational opportunities, economic empowerment, and political participation to ensure that women can enjoy the full range of rights Islam promises them. In conclusion, the Quran and Hadith provide a rich and comprehensive framework for women's rights, emphasizing equality, dignity, justice, and empowerment. Islam offers clear guidelines for women's rights to education, work, marriage, inheritance, and social participation, while also emphasizing their responsibilities within the family and society. Women in Islam are seen as equal partners in the human experience, deserving of the same spiritual, social, and economic rights as men. While cultural practices may sometimes obscure or misinterpret the true essence of these teachings, the core message of Islam remains one of justice and equity for all. Through education, advocacy, and reform, Muslim women continue to assert their rights and strive for a society where the teachings of the Quran and Hadith are fully realized, leading to a world in which all women can experience the dignity and respect that Islam inherently offers. Continuing the discussion on women's rights in Islam, it's essential to acknowledge the ongoing efforts in contemporary society to bridge the gap between traditional practices and the values of justice and equality outlined in the Quran and Hadith. Many Muslim women, scholars, and activists have taken significant steps to reinterpret and promote the true teachings of Islam regarding women's rights, empowering them to challenge harmful cultural practices and seek a more just, equitable society. One important area of focus is the education of women. The Quran stresses the importance of knowledge for both men and women, as shown in Surah Al-Alaq 96:1-5 and other verses, which emphasize the importance of seeking knowledge and wisdom. Historically, Islamic civilization has produced great female scholars who contributed to various fields of knowledge, including theology, law, literature, and science. The Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, himself encouraged both men and women to seek knowledge and engage with the Quran. In today's context, education is seen as an essential tool for empowering women to exercise their rights and contribute to society in meaningful ways. Muslim women around the world continue to pursue higher education and professional careers, which is a testament to the enduring relevance of Islam's call for knowledge and intellectual growth. In many parts of the Muslim world, there has been a significant rise in women's participation in politics, law, and social justice movements. Khadija, the Prophet's first wife, is a prime example of an entrepreneurial woman who ran a successful trading business. The right to participate in public life and to be represented in the leadership is another significant aspect of women's rights in Islam. Although traditional roles have often seen men in leadership positions, the Quran and Hadith do not inherently deny women the ability to lead. In Surah At-Tabai, 9 hours 71 minutes, the Quran states, "The believing men and believing women are allies of one another. They enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong." This verse affirms that both men and women share responsibility for the promotion of righteousness and the prevention of evil, which could include leadership roles in the public sphere. The historical precedent of women in leadership roles, such as Queen Bilqis of Sheba, who is mentioned in the Quran, Surah An-Naml 27:38-40, shows that Islam does not inherently limit women from holding positions of power. In the realm of family law, the principles of justice and fairness are upheld to protect the rights of women. Islam provides a system of governance in family matters that seeks to protect women from oppression, ensuring that their rights are respected in cases of inheritance, marriage, and divorce. In Surah Al-Baqarah 2:228, it is stated that women have rights similar to those of men, and they should not be wronged. This shows that the Islamic family system is built on mutual respect and balance, and women are granted the right to seek justice in situations where they may have been wronged. One of the significant areas where Islamic teachings show concern for women's rights is in the issue of domestic violence and mistreatment. The Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, is reported in various hadiths to have stressed the fair and respectful treatment of women. He said, "Do not beat your wives," Sunan Ibn Majah, and made clear that men are not to harm their wives in any way. Islam does not condone any form of abuse or oppression, whether physical, emotional, or psychological, and provides a framework for resolving conflicts in a way that is just and respectful. Any abuse or mistreatment of women is considered a grave violation of Islamic principles and is to be condemned. Islamic jurisprudence provides avenues for women to seek legal protection through mechanisms such as the iddah, waiting period after divorce, which ensures that women are treated with dignity and fairness in cases of divorce. The Quran and Hadith also stress the importance of financial support for women during this period, and the husband is required to provide for his wife in the form of maintenance during the waiting period. Furthermore, the right of women to raise their children is highly valued in Islam. The Quran and Hadith stress the significance of motherhood, with the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, emphasizing the high status of mothers and the obligation children have to honor and care for their mothers. In Surah Luqman 31:14, it is mentioned that a mother's sacrifices during pregnancy and childbirth should be acknowledged and respected. The Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, further emphasized the importance of this relationship, stating that a mother's rights are paramount and that heaven lies at the feet of mothers. Islamic teachings also emphasize the importance of protecting women's rights in areas such as inheritance, where the Quran ensures that women receive their due share. Surah An-Nisa 4:11 outlines the inheritance rights of both men and women, granting women a specified portion of their deceased family member's estate. Although the share of a woman's inheritance may differ from that of a man's in some circumstances, this is based on the differing financial obligations in Islamic law. While men are required to financially support their families, women are not obligated to do so, and thus their share of inheritance is proportionally less in some cases. This distinction, however, does not reflect inequality but rather an understanding of the different financial responsibilities assigned to each gender in Islamic jurisprudence. Another significant area is the right to religious freedom and the freedom to practice one's faith. Women in Islam are encouraged to engage in spiritual practices and worship, just as men are. They are required to pray, fast during Ramadan, pay zakat, and perform Hajj if able, without any gender-based restrictions. Women are also encouraged to seek knowledge about their faith and are allowed to teach others. The Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, appointed women to religious and social roles, such as the role of a teacher and a counselor, showing that women were active participants in the religious and intellectual life of the early Muslim community. Lastly, the concept of modesty, or haya, is central to both men's and women's lives in Islam. Women are encouraged to dress modestly and behave with humility, as prescribed in the Quran and Hadith. However, it is crucial to understand that modesty in Islam is not limited to the way women dress, but encompasses their entire demeanor, actions, and relationships. The notion of modesty, especially in the context of hijab, is often misunderstood. It is a personal choice that empowers women to maintain their dignity and privacy in public spaces. The Quranic injunctions related to hijab, such as those found in Surah An-Nur 2431 and Surah Al-Ahzab 33:59, emphasize modesty as a means of protecting women's honor and ensuring they are not objectified. In conclusion, the Quran and Hadith provide a comprehensive framework for the rights, responsibilities, and dignities of women in Islam. From spiritual equality to educational opportunities, financial independence, marriage, and motherhood, Islam offers a holistic and protective system that emphasizes justice, respect, and honor. Women in Islam are seen as full participants in the religious, social, and economic spheres, and their rights are safeguarded by both the divine and the human laws of the faith. The challenges faced by women in some parts of the Muslim world often stem from cultural practices rather than from the core teachings of Islam, which inherently upholds the dignity and equality of women. Islam's comprehensive approach to women's rights ensures that they are treated with justice and given the freedom to contribute to society in all aspects of life. Continuing from the previous points, it's important to further explore how Islamic teachings guide the treatment of women in modern contexts and continue to inspire advocacy for women's rights globally. One key aspect of this is the role that Islamic scholarship plays in empowering women. In the Islamic tradition, women have long been active participants in scholarly pursuits, with notable female scholars in early Islamic history such as Aisha bint Abi Bakr, the Prophet Muhammad's wife, who was known for her vast knowledge of Hadith and Islamic jurisprudence. Women also contributed to the transmission of Islamic knowledge, ensuring that their voices were integral in shaping the Islamic intellectual tradition. This legacy continues today, as women around the world continue to engage with religious texts, pursue higher education, and contribute to religious and intellectual discourse. In terms of women's participation in the workforce and public life, it's essential to highlight that Islamic principles advocate for women's right to contribute to their communities, as long as it does not conflict with their religious duties or personal well-being.